This is a Ekman Fine Art project lesson Christmas Tree Ornament candy cane. Project lessons are for learning acid-free fine art cast paper sculpture using the Ekman method. You can find them on our website at ekmanfineart.com. For this project lesson, we're going to learn how to make this bonus ornament, the candy cane, from the paper left over in your other project lesson ornament kits. Your paper are quarter size EFA paper sheets. You have a number 4, a number 2, and a thin hard paper sheet. The first thing you'll want to do is mix your bonding agent. Add a quarter cup of water to a pot on the stove. When it comes to a boil, then add the powder that's in the package from the kit. You'll mix this thoroughly in the water. Here Patty's using a wisp. You could use a spoon or whatever you want. Just mix it up real good. It'll turn milky. Then you'll want to add some ice. And the ice serves to cool the bonding agent. As it cools, it gets thicker. Have 2 containers ready. Add this thick bonding agent to one of the containers. After you've added the thick to one container, pour half of that thick bonding agent into the second container. Now you'll want to add water and mix thoroughly. Once you've got that thinned a little bit, you might want to add a little more water. The more water you add, the thinner it gets. Remember though, you can always make your bonding agent thinner, but the only way you can make it thicker is to add more of your thick. Take your number 4 sheet, the thick sheet there, and tear 3.5 inches off the long side of that sheet. Take a clear straight edge or any straight edge and tear it a little at a time, holding it down hard. Your number 4 sheet is the thicker of the 2 soft paper sheets. So take that section that you tore off and wet it with your bonding agent. Just wet the top first, then take a wire. This is a stainless steel wire, pretty thin wire. Then we'll take our tuck tool burnisher that you can find on our website and bend it, the paper, just a little bit over the wire. When you let it sink in a little bit, that moisture will soften that paper. Then you just score it across that wire, kind of tuck it under the wire. Put a little more on there, and then we'll wet the rest of the sheet here, or some of it, and get it tucked underneath there pretty good. A lot of people have trouble with this. Just do the best you can. And you want to roll it on that wire. If yours doesn't look like mine, don't worry about it. We can just chase it out later and smooth it a little bit, but just do the best you can. wet the whole sheet here and finish rolling it on that wire. It's a thin wire, a small wire, which that's what you want. You could use a brass wire or stainless steel. Um, Paper's thick, so it's not an easy thing to do here, but I've got a lot of practice, so I'm going to get a pretty smooth roll of paper. Now I'm going to take a burnisher and smooth it a little more. Wet the surface of that paper rod now. It's over top of that wire. Lay it down on my table here and burnish it. Just trying to get it as smooth as I can. I'm using a stainless steel wire that we have here, but you can get brass welding rod at just about any hardware store. Now I'm going to take that wire out of there, slide it out and bend the top one side. This will be the top of your candy cane. It's going to have crinks in it, which we'll chase out, but basically we just want to get the shape there, and we can use our thin sheet to chase it out, and we'll close that hole with the paper that's there on the top and the bottom. And you can see it's going to have some kinks in it, but don't worry about that. That's just because the paper is thick and it's just the physics of it, it's going to kink. But we can take care of that later. Now I'm going to close the hole on the bottom, and after I've got it the way I want it, I'll dry it. So I'll lay it on my drying stand, and then I'll elevate it and put it under a fan and dry it. Now I've dried my candy cane, and I want to start chasing it. So I'm just going to do some dry burnishing first. Just rubbing it. It's pretty stiff now because all that paper's dried. It's got a lot of bonding agent in it, so it's pretty hard. You see the kinks there? We're going to work those kinks out. We're going to try to smooth it all the way around. Now I'm going to tear some more paper, get some little sheets ready to work on those kinks. This is a thicker sheet. This is a number 4, but number 2 works too. We just need a little bit of this to work in the kinks. The number 2 will take a little more because it's thinner, but whichever you want to do. You notice I tore those sheets off the short side, and now I can't make any more long candy canes out of that 4 sheet. You should take those ready strip sheets off the long side. Now I'm going to tear these. You can see they're almost like little squares that I'm tearing here. Then I'm going to get them all done. Now I'll wet my candy cane, the inside of it there with the bonding agent, and where those kinks are, I'm just going to apply that paper and fill those kinks. Kind of work it around with the brush. And I can work it in with the burnisher. There's a lot of wrinkles too that you can fill. It's going to get a little thicker here on the top of this candy cane, but don't worry about that. Let's just worry about the kinks now and smoothing it. Trying to get that cane part of the candy cane looking the way it should. Kind of like the shaft there where it's smooth. We're going to want to burnish those in and try to smooth it out as much as we can. There you can see the top of it's a little bump there. I'm going to take a number 2 sheet here and tear some thin pieces off on it using my clear triangle where I can see through it. A little easier to tear those thin sheets than the thicker ones. But we'll tear some ready sheets here and get ready to work on the candy cane with the thinner sheets now. So I'll wet the inside and put a thin sheet there. You can see they're a little longer, and I apply it where I want to smooth it. Get some on the top of the candy cane too. Work it around. Work some on the end there. Basically what we want to do is getting it worked in. Also, we'll be looking at the thickness. We want that candy cane to be pretty much the same thickness all the way around from this curved cane part to the bottom. But working out these kinks is where we are now, so we'll just take care of that. Now I've worked it in all the way around, almost ready to dry this. Just get a little more. Don't worry about how big it gets. When it dehydrates after you've dried it, it's going to tighten up. It's going to get a little smaller. That's the nature of this. It's got all that water in there. So when the water gets dried out of there, it's going to get smaller. Alright, I've dried this. Now we're going to do a little dry burnishing on this and a little grinding. This hard burnishing does a lot to smooth it. So get yourself some good burnishers so you can do that. Now I'm going to use this coarse grinding block pad that's on the block and work off that top, just trying to get it round, smooth. I'll be adding a little more number 2 sheets here when I get it the way I want it. But just whittle some of this excess off with my knife. Also try to get it sculpted in and chased down the way I want it. So it looks like a candy cane. I obviously have gotten into a bad habit by cutting toward myself. You got to be careful when you whittle. Please cut away from yourself. You'll want lots of candy canes on your tree. That's why we put plenty of paper in the kit to do this. So you can have as many candy canes as you have ornaments, probably more on some of these, like the snowman and the teddy bear. You're not going to use a lot of the thicker paper or the harder paper. So you probably can make 2 or 3 candy canes out of those 2 kits. Now I'm going to add some more of this thin paper just to get it smooth and get the shape right, get them round. You see most of those kinks are already worked out. Work wet and dry to get it the way we want, and we'll take our time just getting it looking good. Now get ready to dry this again. A little speck in there from someplace. Pick it out with a knife. And again, it's swelled up there. Dry it. Okay, we got it dried again, all dehydrated, and you can see a little grinding might help to get that candy cane the same thickness and nice and round at the top. So I'm going to use my sanding or grinding blocks that I got at the hardware store. That gray grinding paper, I don't like sandpaper. It can leave a residue, but this gray doesn't. I use a mask when I'm doing a lot of grinding like this, just to keep it out of my lungs and nose. It's a good idea to wear those when you're doing this. Now I'm doing a little bit of grinding on the shaft part of this cane too. This will pretty much finish it up. I get it as smooth as I can, and I'm going to wet it with the bonding agent and do a little bit of burnishing with my burnishing tool, and then I'll dry it again before we start the next step. You can see it's got that shape of a candy cane. It's pretty consistent in terms of the diameter and the smoothness. Worked out all the kinks, and didn't take very long to do this. The drying part is really important. It, it's part of this process. But there are other things we can do while things are drying as well. In this next step, I'll show you. Now we'll dry it. This is that hard, thin sheet that came in your kit. And what I'm going to do is take my straight edge, that clear triangle, and I'm going to cut a couple of strips that are about 3/8 of an inch wide. I'm just eyeballing them. If you want to measure them, you can. I find that I get pretty consistent just eyeballing things. I guess it's because I've been an artist all my life. I'm sure that some of you can too. But my first one is a good one to use to measure my second thickness with. Go through there a couple times with my X-Acto knife. Now I got a couple of nice thin strips. What I'm going to do is lay these down on a piece of plexiglass that I got at Hobby Lobby, and it's just really thin plexiglass. It's something that makes a good tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint that bonding agent on one side and then burnish it down. It'll stick to that plexiglass. These are going to be that red stripe that's it's in your candy cane, but we want to get it stuck down here pretty good. It'll stick there, but we'll be able to pull it up when we're finished without any problem. Paint some more on here on that second strip, turn it over, and burnish it down too. And it's going to stick pretty hard. I'll dry this. I'll tape that plexiglass down on each end so it won't bow on me. Because when this dries, it will want to shrink a little bit and bow that plexiglass. And there we are. Now my strips are all dry, and I'm going to paint them with Liquitex Cadmium Red Light acrylic paint. And there it is in my little palette, and I'm going to paint these stripes with a brush. My brush is almost as wide as these little strips of paper. I'll apply a couple of coats of this, and then I'll dry it. Some of it gets on this plexiglass, which is not a big deal. We'll trim that off later. So while it's being painted, it dries at the top, and I can then add a second coat. Now I've got this painted pretty good. You can see it doesn't penetrate those hard sheets. That makes it easy for us to stick it to the paper of that cane. I haven't done a penetration seal on that cane, and I'm not going to until after I get the candy stripes on that cane. So now I'm going to take this and I'll dry it. Now I have my cane dried and my candy stripes, those red stripes, they're all dried as well. So from here we'll peel one up. You can see that it's got some paint on the edge. That's alright, we can clean that up. I take my clear straight edge and a razor blade and just trim that paint that's stuck to both sides of this off. And I'm going to do that on both strips. Sides, top, and bottom. There you can see a nice clean edge. So we'll do that with both of them. Now I'm finishing up on the second one, just very carefully cutting along that edge. Now that I have that done, I'll turn one of them over, and with a brush and bonding agent I will paint the unpainted side with bonding agent. Let it soak in a little bit. Take my candy cane and I'm going to put some bonding agent on that too. Get it nice and wet. Now I'm going to wrap. I'll let it overhang on the bottom just a little bit, but I'm going to wrap this candy cane as even as I can. You can make some adjustments on it. It will slide because both sides are wet, and you can move it around a little bit. If some pigment comes off of those strips, we'll just touch it up later. I really didn't cure this overnight, so I'm going to get some paint off on this red strip a little bit. You can see I'm adjusting, trying to get it looking as even as I can, sliding it up. This is why we have two strips, because one strip isn't long enough. I did cut those strips on the long side of my hard paper. I got them off of there, and now I'm going to take the other strip and do the exact same thing. I'm going to paint this bonding agent on the white side. And then I'll paint my cane part as well. And I'm going to wrap, trying to get as close as I can here. This is the hard part, is trying to get it looking good as it wraps around this this curved part of the cane. Hold it with my finger, try to hold it down and wrap it around there. Now I've got it wrapped around, and you can see there's more than I need there. I'm going to make some adjustments. Take it off here. I got it a wide part right there at the one part of the top. So, alright, I've adjusted it, and now I have it looking pretty good. So, we can move on. We'll dry this now and go to the next step. Okay, I got it dried. I'm going to trim off this excess down here, right where I want it. I'll just use a pair of scissors. Do that. Little curved fingernail scissors. It's a good tool to have. You can see some pigment's gone. We'll take care of that. It's going to be just fine. So I'm going to wet this again right there where it's cut. Try to get it burnished down a little bit. I'll use one of my burnishers, and after it soaks in a little bit, it'll go down better. I'll take care of that at both ends. Okay, I've touched it up with paint and cleaned it up a little bit. This is how we're going to seal it. We're going to seal it right now. We're not really going to do a surface seal the way we normally do it. This will be a penetration seal, and that's all we're going to do. We'll add a couple of coats of this. This is that white glue, Elmer's white glue, and that container I had, I mixed a lot of water in it. It was almost empty, and so I put water in there and just poured it out. You can see it's pretty thin. When you work with that Elmer's glue, you know it's pretty thick. So, some clean water here and clean brushes. And I'm going to paint the candy cane with a coat of this sealant, which is, like I said, it's mostly water, but it does have some glue in it. You can see it's kind of white when you paint it on there because it's acrylic. A lot of acrylic in this glue. And what's going to happen is when it dries, that cloudiness will go away. It'll just be pretty much a clear coat on here. Now I've got it painted. I'm going to put an awl right on the tip of the cane. That way I can stand it up when I dry it. Also, I can finish painting this. I'll have to touch it up again with some red paint, but also we're going to use titanium white paint on the bands where the white is, just to brighten it up a little bit. Also, it'll give it a surface seal. We already have a surface seal with the red and the penetration seal. Candy canes sometimes have a little gloss to them anyway, so it's gonna look good when we're all finished here. So we'll take this and we'll dry it too. Now I'm going to use my titanium white Liquitex acrylic and my red CAD red light Liquitex. And I'm going to touch up the candy cane. So get a little brush here where the red paint has come off. Dry this brush off so I can get a little thick paint without diluting it. And I'm just going to carefully paint these areas where pigment came off of our thin hard sheet there. I really didn't come together on those two strips, so I'm going to paint in there too. And I ended up having to put 2 or 3 coats. The acrylic paint will fill those areas and make it look real nice. I'll just finish up painting on the bottom here too. And then the next thing I'm going to do is dry this, and then I'll work on the white area. So now I'm painting around these white strips. It just brightens it up a little bit. And so I'll just touch up in between these white areas and go back and forth until I've got it looking consistent all over. I got a pretty steady hand, but it looks like I got some white paint on my red, so I'll have to touch that up too. But it's worth it. It's just painting. Now we got that little hole. I dried it again. I got that little hole there on the end of the candy cane. I'm just going to take some of the paper that I have and some of that glue and fill in that hole. You can see this sitting there. I'll burnish it down. I'll paint some white over there. The candy cane will be pretty much finished. And I can put another coat of acrylic on there if I want to. Just that acrylic glue, that sealer, just to protect it more. My little granddaughter Ellie, she's 4, and she saw I had these in the studio, all the Christmas tree ornaments, and she went for this candy cane, and she put it in her mouth. She just couldn't resist it. But here's the last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put another coat of this sealant on here. I'll dry it, and my candy cane will be finished. And here it is, all ready to hang on your tree. And there are many more of these Christmas tree ornaments project lessons that you could do. Just go and check out our website at ekmanfineart.com. You can order these Christmas tree ornament kits as well as other project lessons. Just go to the menu bar here and click on Ekman Method. Once you're there, you'll find our paper, bonding agent, project lessons, and you'll find starter casts, DVDs, and tools. The pictures just represent the categories we have for the project lessons and ways to work in this medium. And we'll go under the Daisy Kit and we'll click there and we'll find these project lessons. There's all the Christmas tree ornaments, and you can click on any of those to order. You can search and it'll come up under search from the menu bar as well. To get started, go to our website ekmanfineart.com to order your Christmas tree ornament project lessons or any other project lessons as well, and enjoy.